Hey guys, so I finally found some time to sit down and walk the process of how I got back from the US to China. This is something that I've been getting asked a lot on social media and even just amongst my friends and family. So I just thought I will tell you guys what my experience is, and for sure I don't know all the rules and regulations, and things have changed already. I know that for sure since I came back, so please check government websites and just like tourism information advisory websites to make sure that you have everything you need to travel if that's what your plan is. This is just my personal experience and what happened to me. And so I purchased my ticket towards the end of August, mid to end of August, for a flight on Delta from from Seattle to Shanghai for September 9th, 10th. Actually, my flight was changed by the airline from I think September 10th to September 8th, and this was done sort of like last minute by the airline, and you don't really have a choice, but that's what happened to me. But what's really important is that you need to leave at least 14 days in advance for your flight. You will not be able to get on your flight even unless you have been checking in online on this mini app on WeChat or this health app every single day, self-reported that you are healthy, that you don't have a fever, and answer questions like you're not around people who have been contacted with COVID-19, etc., etc. And every day you'll get a code, a QR code. And you have to be doing this for at least 14 days before your flight until the Chinese government gives you sort of an approval stamp, which is this QR code, this green QR code with like a plain icon symbol in the middle. And that is sort of like a stamp of approval that you need to be showing your the person at the airport or the airline officer that you are approved by the Chinese government to go to China. And this is one of the many things that you will have to do. So on top of that, you need a valid visa to enter China right now. And I'm not an expert at this, and this is not what my video is about. I don't know how you can get a visa. You have to ask someone else out for that. But I do know as of September 25th that you can come back to China if, one, you're a Chinese national, two, you have one of three of these following Chinese visas: a work visa, a visa for personal matters, I'm not really sure what that means, or for reunion. Like I said, I'm not an expert at this. I don't know how you get these visas, but it's like something like you need an invitation letter, a PU letter, something like that. I'm really lucky because I'm actually a Hong Kong citizen. I have a Hong Kong permanent ID card, and I have a Hong Kong China travel card, which basically gives me access, it's like unlimited travel visa between Hong Kong and China and the rest of the world. So I don't need any of the above visas to come into China. So I'm lucky, this is just my case. So if you have any questions about how to get a work visa, please contact the local Chinese consulate or whatnot. And the other thing is I got really lucky because my flight was September 10th, but starting September 15th, so basically the week after my flight, everyone flying in from the United States would have to get a COVID test done, and for it to be stamped by the Chinese consulate as negative before you can board your flight. And I know this applies to a ton of foreign countries, so every country flying into the China right now has a different COVID policy. Some countries, if you're flying from there, you don't need a COVID test. Some countries you do. So please check very specifically about your country of whether or not you need a COVID test before you fly into China. And this is something that I personally was really confused because my Delta flight from Seattle to Shanghai shows on my ticket that I have a layover in Seoul, Korea. And so how the policy works in terms of determining whether or not you need a COVID test is your last port of entry. So technically my port of entry was from Seoul to Shanghai because I have a layover in Seoul. However, my flight's actually considered a direct flight from Seattle to Shanghai, because even though it's a layover, it was only a crew change. So I did not get off my plane. No passenger from my flight got off their flight from the plane, and I didn't even change my seat number. So I did not need a COVID test at the time when I flew. But if you are transferring from Seoul, Korea, or from any of the other countries that require a COVID test before entering China, then make sure that you have that. And this is really complicated, and I just need to get it into you that you need to check every single regulation. Check with your airline, probably they know something about it, but even then double check. And there are a lot of resources online to help you through it, so please get that. But other than that, my personal experience of going to the airport, of getting on the flight, and just being cautious and getting back to China was actually fairly pleasant. There was a bit of a mix-up at the airport. My flight was delayed, stuff like that, but normal stuff. What was different was that, so apart from the QR code that I mentioned that you must have before you board your flight, at the gate, they will have you fill out another form, and you need to have that stamp of approval after you fill out that form, another QR code to show to one of the gate personnel, and they would do a temperature check on you. After you get that temperature check, and if you pass, they give you a sticker on your passport. And after that sticker is when you can get on your flight. So we safely landed in Shanghai. This flight was pretty smooth. We stopped in Korea for about an hour for crew change, and now we're waiting for instructions to get off the plane. I think they're doing it by groups, by rows. Not really sure. And then we will be directed towards the quarantine center district. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And otherwise, it's a smooth flight, and I'm pretty tired, but And so, get on your flight, and as you can see from the previous videos here, that I was given sort of like a hand sanitizing wipe, and I wiped down my entire seat before getting on. And I flew business, so I was really lucky that I didn't have to be next to somebody. I'm pretty sure that the middle seats in the back were all blocked out, but in the front, in the business class section, all the seats in the middle rows were blocked. So only the window seats, the aisle seats, singular seats were occupied. So I wasn't even remotely close to the next person apart from the person behind me, and we actually had sliding doors. So I was pretty, I'd say, insulated in my own space, but I still wiped everything down, and I wore a mask throughout my whole flight apart from when we were served food. And that's the other thing. Just my flight experience, I know some flights are different, but we were served meals, actual meals. We had a dinner, and then we had a breakfast, and there was a snack in between. They were pretty proper meals. I mean, it wasn't like packaged up. Well, it was packaged up, but at the same time, it felt kind of normal. Like, apart from my mask, I kind of felt like it was just another flight. But there were definitely a lot of caution, and when I went to the bathroom, I was really careful to wash my hands and to wipe everything down before when I went in, when I left. So there are just some things that you have to be mindful of, and don't do anything stupid like walk around the flight without your mask. But as long as you're cautious, I think things are generally okay. Get to the airport early, just because you never know what's gonna happen. Because the QR code, that form that I had to fill, I didn't know I had to do that, and that took another 10 to 15 minutes for me to figure out what was happening and which line I had to go into and stuff. And then after I got off my flight, it was sort of a hectic experience, a little bit. So I was one of the first people off the flight, so I didn't really have to wait for long on the plane, but I knew they were letting people off section by section. So after I got off the plane, Everything was sectioned off and you're just walking between these borders or these lines, and you walk down, you meet everyone in like these full body suits, medical suits, and you fill out this form. And it's like sort of a health declaration form with all your information and where you're coming from, and your contact information, and where you're going to be living, stuff like that. Where you're coming from, where were you the last 14 days, the standard questions. And then you go to a station where someone is actually going through that information with you, and you get another QR code stamped to make sure all your information is verified. And then you go through another tunnel of sort of like a maze, and you get to the COVID test section. The COVID test was very interesting. There were about, I think like 20 different stations, and you just get sent to the whatever was empty. And it kind of felt like in the US when you go to the DMV, like the driver's license or like a passport center, and you wait until your number is called, and then you go to that corresponding number, and then the officer there kind of like sits you down, asks you questions, stuff like that. So it was a little bit like that. And you sit down, everyone was super nice, every station was sanitized, and it was a little painful. So for me, I had nasal COVID tests, and I think from what I've heard that some people have different like throat ones as well. I don't know, I didn't see any of that, but I did hear stations next to me where people were kind of like crying or like yelping out in pain. And I've done COVID tests in the US through nasal form, and it was painful, but this was something different. So first of all, they do it in both of your noses, and they stick it in pretty deep, like it's very deeply uncomfortable, and they leave it in there for a good while. Like it felt like a minute or two. It's probably 30 seconds in each nose, but it felt like a really, really long time. So just to get it out there, it's not comfortable, but it's over. Like it'll be over in like a minute. And so it's not too bad. And the lady that did it to me was super nice and gentle about it. She's like, it's gonna hurt. She warned me, and then you'll be okay. So after that, I was given a form, and then I was told to move on to the next station, basically. And I forgot exactly what happened, but probably like another temperature check, and then another health form that, they told me to like hand to them to fill. And then you're done. Oh, there's like standard immigration customs where they ask you where you're from and whatever, but after that, you're done, and you're left to go get your luggage.
So weird to see the airport so empty like this. There's nobody here. Holy moly. Okay, so I just went through my district check, and I applied for 14 days home quarantine, subject for approval, and I was approved. So I'm just waiting for the bus right now to go home, basically, with all the other people who live near me, and I'll keep you guys posted.
So getting into the luggage section was a little weird. The airport was super empty, like there was nobody at all apart from people on my flight. And so you get to the luggage section, and for me, the luggages took a little longer than usual. I don't know why. I waited almost 50 minutes to get all my stuff, but it is what it is. And after you get all your luggage, you line up to go through customs, and you throw all your suitcases through the x-ray process, and then afterwards you get out, and then this is where things get a little different from normal as well. So as soon as you walk up, you take the elevator up, and you get divided into sections. So where you live in Shanghai, you get sent to that district. And I don't know how other cities are working in China, but in Shanghai, you head towards your district, and then they determine what your quarantine situation is like. So I've been told before this that you don't really get to pick what your hotel is if you're staying at a hotel. And typically right now, most people are doing a 7+7 quarantine, which means 7 days at a hotel, given that your COVID results are negative at the airport. And then you get to go home for the next 7 days, and then a total of 14. Except for a few cases, and that is if you have a child under 18 years old, if you are over 65 years old or you have a medical condition, then you can apply for a 14-day home quarantine. This is where it gets a little complicated because I think you need to prove a certain conditions as well after you prove this to show that you will be home by yourself or with your child or elderly, and it will just be you guys, and that you must get approval from your xiaoqu or the community that you live in that this is approved. And every district is different. They might ask for different documents like proof of your lease or proof of your housing agreement or whatever it is, but they will ask you to prove something. And for me, so I got really lucky that I have a, well, I would say lucky, but I have a medical condition of which I have a doctor's note for. And my doctor's note was in English, so I didn't have time to get it translated. And I was like fingers crossed. I really hope that they can really take it seriously and get it approved. But when I got to my district station and they checked my forms and I requested for a 14-day home quarantine and showed them my doctor's note, the guy asked me to wait for a second and he went to check with his boss. He came back about 5 minutes later telling me that I was approved. So I also know that in a lot of cases, even when you are approved for home quarantine, that you have to stay at a hotel for about a day or two before your COVID results come back, and they usually come back within 24 hours, so you have to stay at the hotel for a day before you can go home. But in my case, they sent me straight home. So there were two other people that was in the same boat as I was, two elderlies, and we waited for the bus to arrive, and the three of us got sent back to our respective homes in this giant bus, and it was just the three of us. So from the time that I landed at the airport, which was about 4 or 5 a.m., to when, through all the COVID tests and foreign checking, luggage waiting, customs, immigration, getting to the district check, all of that took about 4 hours, I would say. And I got home around 9:30 a.m. and I landed in Shanghai at 4. So that's what it took for me. And so I've been home for the last 13 days. I really enjoyed it. I've been painting, reading, writing, doing work, and yeah, that is just my experience. And I know a lot of you have different experiences. On top of that, the 14 days quarantine here, every day, for twice a day, someone comes to my door to check on me and to give me a temperature check. And for me, it usually, the morning check is about anytime between 9 to 10 a.m. and then the second afternoon check is around 1 to 2 p.m. And I'm not supposed to leave the house any other time. I mean, I'm not supposed to leave the house at all, and I haven't. And yeah, they just check twice a day. And on your 12th day, so yesterday, a doctor came to give me another COVID test. So, they did the whole nasal thing again, and I got the results back within 24 hours saying that I'm negative. So tomorrow, because I got home at like around 9 a.m., I actually get out after my first temperature check in the morning, and then I get a release form basically saying that I am healthy and COVID free, or so they think, and I'm done with quarantine. So yes, that is my experience, and I know plenty of people who have very different experiences, for better or worse, and I can't comment on what that is, but from what I know, generally people have had a very pleasant travel experience with the airline, the airport. Everyone's very cautious, and they know that people are worried about traveling during this weird pandemic time. And so yeah, as long as you're cautious, I think, and you have a good reason to travel, there's nothing to worry about unless you have an underlying health condition. I did see people in full bodysuits. I didn't do that. I just had a mask, and I took off all my clothes immediately when I got home and washed them, and that's about it. So if you have any questions, you can comment below. I will try my best to answer them, and there are a lot of WeChat support groups. So I'm in one, and the information that I was given has been immensely helpful, and people are super supportive. So I can help you get into a group if that's what you want. And good luck on your traveling if that is what you are looking to do. And I hope this video really helped, and if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.